inflation is down and wages are up, prices are still too high. And when we win this election, here's what we're going to do about it. On day one, I will take on price gouging and bring down costs.
When she wins the election? Why the hell can't she do any of that now? It's not like she's vice president or anything. This is Kamala Harris, the shadow president of the United States. The day after President Joe Biden announced that he was dropping out of the 2024 race, he gave his full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the Democrat nominee. The next day, VP Kamala dropped by the Biden-Harris campaign headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware.
It is my intention to go out and earn this nomination and to win.
Now, for the last few years, Democrats have claimed that they are the champions of democracy and that they're the only thing standing in the way of voting rights, etc. Here's VP Kamala during the first week of her presidential campaign.
Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote. The beauty of our democracy is that we each have the power to answer that question when we vote. And when we vote, we make our voices heard. While you teach students about democracy and representative government, extremists attack the sacred freedom to vote.
And when America's educators teach about the 2024 election cycle, students will learn that not a single voter cast their ballot for Kamala Harris to be the Democrat presidential nominee. Because democracy or something. Bret Stephens, a contributing opinion writer at the New York Times, is skeptical, writing, "The last two times Democrats attempted to stage a coronation instead of a contest in choosing a presidential nominee, it did not go well. Not for Hillary Clinton in 2016, not for Joe Biden this year. So why would anyone think it's a good idea when it comes to Kamala Harris, the all but anointed nominee after barely a day? And what the Democrats are doing is the opposite of democracy, despite the endless preaching about it.
We who believe in the sacred freedom to vote will make sure every American has the ability to cast their ballot and have it counted."
However, 14.4 million Americans who cast their ballot for Joe Biden in the primaries, well, their votes don't count anymore. In fact, it's almost like they never existed. The one thing the Democratic Party is not supposed to be is anti-democratic, a party in which insiders select the nominee from the top down, not the bottom up, and which expects the rank and file to fall in line and clap enthusiastically. That's the playbook of ruling parties in autocratic states. And Bret Stephens is correct. Democrat voters had zero say in the matter as to who was going to replace Ghost Biden as the Democrat nominee. Instead, that decision was made by the donors and the party elites. I mean, do you think that if given a chance, that Kamala Harris would have been voters' #1 choice? Press X for doubt. So the next time you hear that Republicans are a threat to democracy, tell the Democrats to shove it up their ass. Anyway, as Bret Stephens points out in his opinion piece, Kamala Harris has some serious weaknesses, including the fact that she's anchored to Joe Biden's record. Too many liberals think that Biden has had a terrific presidency, hobbled only by his personal frailties. Consistent majorities of Americans beg to differ. An ABC poll this month found that 42% of Americans thought their financial situation under Biden was worse. Only 17% felt that it was better. Most Americans think that their financial situation is worse because of Bidenomics, and I doubt that anyone believes that it's going to get any better under Kamalanomics. Illegal immigration is another loser for the administration, underscored, not refuted, by the fact that an executive order by the president last month stemmed the tide of border crossings. If the fix was that easy, why didn't Harris champion it 3 years ago? And that's correct. Joe Biden swore up and down that he didn't have the power to do anything about the border and needed Congress to step in. But when it became a political liability, Joe Biden was suddenly able to take executive action. How about that? But the reality is that executive order is a charade, because the Biden-Harris administration still allows illegal aliens to cross the border in between points of entry, apply for asylum, and then hang out for 7 to 10 years in the United States while they await their court hearing. In the meantime, the Biden-Harris administration says that the executive action is working, claiming that border encounters in June 2024 were lower than they have been since February 2021. However, that number is very similar to what it was last year in June 2023. Are we supposed to be impressed? Also, who cares? During the first 3.5 years of the Biden-Harris administration, there have been a reported 6.3 million encounters at the southwest border. For the record, during the first 6 months of 2024, there have been over 1 million encounters at the southwest border. The Biden-Harris administration claims that the numbers are improving, but they are still way above and beyond the numbers under President Trump. In other words, the same people that told you that this guy was sharp as a tack are now telling you that the border, it's under control. And don't worry, I'm sure we can trust him this time. So in March 2021, Joe Biden called a meeting and spoke about the sudden influx of migrants at our southern border. Biden started off with this dubious claim.
So this new surge we're dealing with now started with the last administration, but it's our responsibility to deal with it humanely and to stop what's happening.
Fact check false. The surge started after Biden took office. During the 4 months prior, under Trump, the numbers were relatively stable. But during the first month of the Biden-Harris administration, border encounters rose by 29%. The next month, it rose by 71%. Joe Biden is a lying piece of crap. And even though the Trump administration's immigration policies were working, Democrats were determined to rip them to shreds because feelings.
We have rescinded so many Trump immigration policies, it would take so much time to list them.
So instead of securing the border, the Biden-Harris administration went another route. Here is former United States Ambassador to Mexico and Joe Biden's border czar, Roberta Jacobson.
The president has committed to seeking $4 billion over 4 years to address the root causes of migration. As part of that plan, we will address the causes that compel individuals to migrate, including improving governance and providing a foundation for investment and economic opportunity, strengthening civilian security and the rule of law. Only by addressing those root causes can we break the cycle of desperation and provide hope for families who clearly would prefer to stay in their countries and provide a better future for their children.
In other words, the United States would give millions, if not billions of dollars to countries in the Northern Triangle to persuade them to improve their governance so that their citizens won't feel the need to come to America. I mean, sure, it's never worked in the past, but don't worry, I'm sure it's gonna work this time. But Jacobson's role as border czar was short-lived, so Biden decided it was time to give Kamala Harris something to do.
But I've asked her, the VP today, because she's the most qualified person to do it, to lead our efforts with Mexico and the Northern Triangle and the countries that help. We're going to need help in stemming the movement of so many folks stemming the migration to our southern border. It's not her full responsibility and job, but she's leading the effort. The vice president's agreed, among the multiple other things I have her leading, and I appreciate it, agreed to lead our diplomatic effort and work with those nations to accept the returnees and enhance migration enforcement at their borders,
Now, if it sounds like Kamala's mission is strikingly similar to border czar Jacobson's, it's because it is, which means Kamala effectively became Joe Biden's new border czar. So what was VP Kamala's plan exactly? How would she stop the illegal border crossings?
I want to be clear
to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
And they didn't listen. 3 years later, it's very clear that the Biden-Harris administration's handling of the border was, and still is, a disaster. Here's President Donald Trump on the matter.
Kamala Harris was appointed border czar, as you know, in March of 2021, and since that time, millions and millions of illegal aliens have invaded our country.
So with that, Democrats and the media went into full gaslighting mode. First, Axios put out this tweet. The Trump campaign and Republicans have tagged Harris repeatedly with the border czar title, which she never actually had. So Axios is saying that Kamala was never the border czar, except for the fact that it was previously reported that she was the border czar by Axios, including this article from April 2021. Harris, appointed by Biden as border czar, said she would be looking at the root causes that drive migration. But you gotta love that the editors at Axios thought it would help Kamala Harris by putting all the blame on Republicans.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
She was never appointed border czar.
Kamala Harris was not named border czar.
She wasn't actually the border czar.
Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
She was never actually border czar.
She was never border czar.
First of all, border czar, the title, is the title the Republicans gave her. She is not the border czar.
Just remember, folks, the same Democrats and news networks who repeated the talking point that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian information now want you to believe that Kamala wasn't actually the border czar. They think you're stupid. So if she wasn't the border czar, even though she actually was, what was VP Kamala supposed to be doing in regards to immigration? Well, here's Richard Fowler, easily the dumbest person on Fox News, to explain.
I think Republicans for a long time have labeled Kamala Harris the border czar. If you go back to
she was.
No. If you go back to the president's
No.
If you go back to the president's statement where he asked Kamala Harris to lead the diplomatic effort in the Northern Triangle countries to work on root causes to why people are migrating to the southern border, crossing the border, she was not the border czar. She was responsible for diplomatic efforts getting to the root cause.
Are you telling me that her assignment was find out why people are coming here?
Yes, her assignment was the same thing.
Wait, I can tell you that.
No, her assignment was
I'm not the vice president.
I will proudly put my record against his any day of the week. Any day of the week. Including, for example, on the issue of immigration. Donald Trump does not care about border security. He only cares about himself.
Oh, so Kamala Harris, our failed border czar, is gonna try and match up against Trump's immigration record. Talk about delusions of grandeur.
So I was the Attorney General of a border state. In that job, I walked underground tunnels between the United States and Mexico on that border with law enforcement officers.
I walked in underground tunnels. So what? Man, she's so bad at this.
I went after transnational gangs, drug cartels, and human traffickers that came into our country illegally. I prosecuted them in case after case, and I won.
However, when this super tough prosecutor ran for president in 2019...
Let me just be very clear. We have to have a secure border, but I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals. You got to play by the rules, but we can't treat people like criminals.
So the former Attorney General of California claims that we can't treat criminals like criminals. Makes sense to me. What's your problem?
So look, our administration worked on the most significant border security bill in decades. Some of the most conservative Republicans in Washington, D.C. supported the bill. Even the Border Patrol endorsed it. It was all set to pass. But at the last minute, Trump directed his allies in the Senate to vote it down.
First of all, this so-called bipartisan border bill was such trash that it had to be negotiated in secret without any input from Democrats and Republicans in the House, or 98% of Senate Republicans. And then when they finally had a chance to read the text, they immediately rejected it. Furthermore, several non-Republican senators, including Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker, Ed Markey, LaFonza Butler, Alex Padilla, and Joe Manchin voted against the bill. So laying all the blame on Trump and the Republicans is completely dishonest. Second, there was H.R. 2, an even tougher border bill that the House passed in 2023. It included hiring more Border Patrol agents, finishing the border wall, upgrading security technology at ports of entry, and requiring that employers use E-Verify. But the Democrat Senate leadership never bothered to do anything with it because they're so tough on the border.
Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been talking a big game about securing our border, but he does not walk the walk. Or as my friend Quavo would say, he does not walk it like he talks it.
Can't wait for 8 years of that. Anyway, that's it for now. Please follow me on X at Don't Walk Run, and while you're at it, please subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time, if there is a next time.